I call this one the crisis of inequality. And I do that because I know that inequality is hardly a new problem. And I know that most of you are likely aware that inequality has definitely been getting worse, economic inequality for sure, in the United States in recent years. I'm picking this topic and focusing on it with you for the next few minutes because it is really reaching crisis proportions, levels of inequality without historical precedent, provocative of the worst kind of bitterness, splitting, injustice you could imagine. And so I need to focus all of us on it. Two recent events brought this home to me. And I think they are both signs of the social corruption that these levels of inequality are producing, as extreme inequality has often produced real problems in the past. You know, the Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis, years ago, made a statement that became famous. It goes roughly like this. You can't have in modern societies, he wrote, a combination of inequality and democracy. If you have inequality, you're going to lose your democracy. Or to put it the other way, if you want real democracy, you're going to have to do away with inequality. Well, he said it. People knew he was on to something, but nobody since then in charge of this country's economic life has done anything about it. And let me make that clear by looking at where we are today, the culmination of what was and was not done in the past. So I begin with two things that provoked me. The first was the offer made by the board of directors of a capitalist corporation, one of the largest in the world, the Tesla Corporation, the one that makes the famous electric vehicles. They offered to their own CEO, who is, I believe, a member of their board as well, an unprecedented pay package over the next 10 years, amounting to $1 trillion. No one has ever been paid that amount of money over a 10-year period as a corporate leader. Mr. Musk is already well known because he's already the richest CEO in the world, whose personal wealth is estimated in the range of $300 to $450 billion. In other words, this unprecedented peak salary, more than ever given to a CEO before, shows you that politics and economics in modern capitalism have reached this point. We get a stark illustration that capitalism is a system that makes the rich richer and the rest of us not so much. Think about it. $1 trillion for Mr. Musk is more money than is spent by the United States, I was about to say Defense Department, but Mr. Trump has changed it to the War Department. $1 trillion is more than their annual budget this year. And the United States is famous around the world for spending more money on the military than any other country in the world by an enormous margin. And of course, that includes Russia, China, and any of the other countries that are referred to as adversaries. This is obscene. Giving the richest man on earth the richest pay package for the next few years makes a horrible joke for the people who aren't laughing. You know, the majority of the people in the world, the majority of the people in the United States who are having an ever harder time making ends meet. Mr. Musk wouldn't know anything about that with the wealth he has. If he didn't ever get another nickel in his life, he'd still be the richest person in the world. But instead of using $1 trillion to help the masses of the people in this world, who could be helped a lot by $1 trillion, we're not going to do it. We're not going to help them. We're going to allow a corporation to take, $1 trillion worth of wealth and give it to the richest man. It really takes your breath away, and it should. The second thing that caught my eye was the U.S. Labor Department's, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, revised the last year's 12 months of data about job creation and basically told us that it was a mistake, that somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million jobs we were told had been created and filled by Americans hadn't been. It was a mistake. A few days ago, Mr. Trump fired the recent head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Will he fire the one he put in her place? Is he not happy with the numbers? I'm not. You know why? Because over the last year, if you've paid attention to financial reporting, here was the number one story repeated over and over again. The American people must be ignorant. The American people must be poorly informed. Why? Because the American people were saying to every pollster who bothered to ask that the economy was not good and their economic situation is lousy. Over the last week, the Gallup poll showed that 75% of the American people polled think their economic future is not as good as their present. Things are not good and getting worse. But no, over the last year, we were told, the economists know, the business leaders, they were congratulating each other over $100 dinners about how good the economy was. No, it wasn't, many of us said. Oh, yes, it was. The mass of people are somehow not understanding how good they have it. Oh, yes, they did. You, the leaders of this system, were the ones fooling yourself, maybe imagining you were fooling the rest of us, but you didn't. A whole bunch, not just me, a whole bunch of economists and others were critical. They weren't given much play. The media are owned by the very rich people who need to keep this celebration going. But the fact of the matter is, we live in an economic system that produces and reproduces inequality. The top 0.5% of America's people own half the wealth in the country. The top 10% own 80% of all the shares of stocks and bonds. The mass of our people, the majority of our people, are having a very hard time that's getting harder. And that's obscene. We have a system that produces inequality, and that's obscene. To have a billionaire as our president puts the wrong person coming from the wrong community with the wrong values and positions in charge. And it's not as though I mean to pick out Mr. Trump. I don't. Too many of the other candidates, who may not be billionaires themselves, although they hope so, depend on donations from the billionaires, depend on lobbyists hired and paid by the billionaires, depend on think tanks issuing documents like telling us over the last year the economy is in great shape, when it clearly, as we now see, wasn't. And we clearly had many Americans telling us it wasn't. But they were conveniently brushed aside. Their motives were suspected. Their honesty was impugned. Why? So that we could listen to the endless make-believe that passes for the opinions of those in charge. It's a crisis now because it's gone way too far. A new generation is emerging to whom you can't say, look at Mr. Musk with his hundreds of billions, his homes, his yachts, his mansions, his spaceships going into the, while you can't pay for college. Your family can't afford a proper home. A friend of mine recently sent me an advertisement for a new company, either called Pad Split or Split Pad. It's for people who can't really afford a motel for a night. They can now work with an internet-connected company that'll stick you in somebody's bedroom for a night for less money, you see, because you won't have an apartment, you won't have a kitchen, you won't have anything other than the bed and the roof, so you don't get rained on during the night. We are an economy adjusting to the inequality that capitalism's gift to us. And is it a gift that keeps on giving? You bet. And the ultimate it gives us is the political corruption we see all around us. Mr. Musk gave Mr. Trump hundreds of millions of dollars. For him, for the richest man in the world, it meant nothing, pocket change. But it shaped our country, didn't it? You have to agree to that, whether you like Mr. Trump or not. They're buying the politicians, and you and I know it. Left and right, up and down, big business buys the people it wants to see in office and makes sure to keep out. The gathering of the money, desperately trying to salvage the political career of Andrew Cuomo after he's been soundly defeated by Zoran Mamdani in New York City, is just another spectacle. If you don't want the money to run your politics, which shapes the life you live in, then you can't have a system that constantly produces and reproduces inequality. But that's what capitalism always was, and that's what capitalism is. Sure, sometimes the people can rise up and for a while lessen the inequality. That happened in the United States in the Great Depression of the 1930s, when the people who run this country threw millions of people out of work, destroyed millions of little companies trying to survive. And we had a movement in this country of people joining unions the way they never had before or since, joining socialist parties, communist party, and those folks all worked together, and the inequality in this country shrank across the 1930s. Look it up if you've never known this fact. Could we have less inequality? Yeah, we could. But a big mistake was made by those people, those good American people in the 1930s who reduced inequality. They never took the step of ending capitalism. So what has the last 75 years taught us? Having left the capitalists in charge of their businesses, gathering into their hands the profits all of us create as workers for them, they use those profits to undo the New Deal, to undo what was achieved in the 1930s, so we don't have reduced inequality. Instead, we have the most extreme inequality imaginable, getting worse each day. This is a crisis. It's an old problem, but it's a new level of crisis in that problem, and it's important for us all to understand it, to face it, and to do something about it. If interventions like this strike you as valuable, please share this video with others, your co-workers, your friends, your neighbors, your family, anyone who might be interested. would give them something to think about.